The crippling cost of non-compliance, a global need to accelerate the digital future. And to do so, I request Mr. Ashish Nikumbh, expert travel and expense management, Happay, to please come upon the stage. Mr. Ashish is an accomplished professional with more than 10 years experience in tech and digitization space, having worked with leaders in multiple verticals such as supply chain digitization, CRM automation, fintech, and leading teams at various organizations. He has a holistic view of how digitization works at mid and large companies and their challenges. As a T&E expert at Happay, he is spearheading strategic communication and account planning for large conglomerates.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good morning. My name is Ashish, and the main idea of having this session is to just throw a little bit light on non-compliance and how, in what forms and factors it comes up, specifically in travel and expenses, right? So what are the costs associated with this non-compliance and how digitizing, in fact the last session was also a lot on digitization and AI, how digitization can actually help tackle or reducing the instances of non-compliance, right? So I'll try to focus on, or I'll try to make it generic to all digitization, but Happay being a travel and expenses company, so our focus area would be travel and expenses because non-compliance itself is a very big topic. Moving ahead, one research data says that in past 10 years, the non-compliance has actually risen by more than 45%, right? And this is a huge data point. There are several factors that are associated. Information security is there, payroll is there, but travel and expense also contribute. So in non-compliance, there are many verticals which contribute to this, and 45% is the overall rate. And if I talk about the per annum rate, it is 2.71%. So it is actually on the rise, right? So all kind of non-compliances are on the rise. You name it, what vertical you are talking about. Currently, what I am speaking of is travel and expenses. As you can see, there are several factors here, payroll, travel and expense, infosec, medical insurance, and travel and expense comes as a top 3 or top 4 priorities, or I would say areas of non-compliance, right? Now this is about the problem that there are non-compliant, there are people who are probably not following rules or not aware about the rules, right? So this is also a huge problem where the employees to start with are not aware about the policies, they are not through and through about all the data that is there, right? So how through automation or adopting a framework we can reduce those instances? This could be digitization in general, or this could be digitization just in travel and expenses, right? It could be both areas. So now I will be specifically focusing on one framework that we as a company has created. Happay has been working with 7,000 plus companies. We are now a CRED company. CRED acquired us in 2021. And since 2012, we have been working with 7,000 plus companies. We are studying their digitization journey. We are studying what are the roadblocks they faced, what really worked, what didn't work. And we came up with one specific framework that we call DAAP, right? So this DAAP framework is actually a small, I would say, template which can be fit into multiple digitization, but it is specifically created for travel and expenses, right? And why there is a need of adopting such framework? Because this is what, in short, specifically travel and expenses, this is what in short we have found out, that if there are non-compliance in T&E, these are some of the issues that face. The first thing, and which is very, very surprising, is up to 30% of travel and expenses cost rise. And this is not our data, this is ResearchGate that says that if the digitization is not there or there are non-compliances that exist in a company, it could lead to travel and expense cost up to 30%. And this is the direct cost. If we talk about indirect cost, of course there are delay in employee reimbursements because there are a lot of back and forth email communication. And then there are, finance team productivity also goes down. They have to manually check all the reimbursements because by default, employees actually submit those reimbursements or travel, requests at the end of the quarter, right? And which is a usual phenomenon, and it actually becomes a lot difficult to go through manually each and every data point that is there. So now what is this DAP framework, right? So the very first thing that comes in DAP is data. And data is probably the most important no matter what digitization you are talking about. So it could be a supply chain, it could be CRM, but if data is not there, this is the first roadblock that happens to any kind of a digitization. And the reason why there is a tendency to maintain status quo whenever there is a talk about digitization, or the tendency to maintain whatever that is happening, is because we focus a lot on what is being captured, right? So if I talk about whether you capture your turnaround time, yes, it is being captured through Excel, through internal tool, right? So a lot of focus on what, but there should be equally high focus on by who is capturing that data, when that data is getting captured, and probably the most important part, how the data is going to be processed. So if it is in Excel and if one team is having that data, it is actually just accounting for that one specific team. If the other team wants to use that data, it becomes very, very difficult. So the data flow and putting that data in process, which is the part of analytics actually, becomes very, very difficult, right? So we are talking about capturing data through multiple ways, right? Who is capturing, why they are capturing, through what ways they are capturing, right? And when it is being captured. If a data is collected 2 months back and now I am capturing the data, again we are losing a lot of info right there, right? And this is again a problem with when we focus a lot on what is being captured. So the idea is how we can make it very, very time dependent, timely. Who is capturing, we are also noting down that who are the people who are contributing to those data sets, and how that data is flowing from one team to another team, which is leading to analytics and which is leading to strategic decisions. And this is where most of the automation fails, because capturing data is effort, right? We have to make it extremely, extremely simple for people to capture that data, giving them n number of methods through which those data points can be collected, that info can be collected. And that's why whenever we are speaking of automation, it is very, very important to ask that how this data is going to come to your system, what are the ways, whether mobile app is there, whether there is a web app, whether it is a native mobile app or not, right? So all these specific questions and how easy it is to use that application. So these are some of the things that comes under data. Second point, A and B, or I would say B and C, that is AA, approvals and audit, is very, very specific to travel and expenses. Data is very generic, no matter which automation you talk about. These are the questions that needs to be asked. But when it comes to travel and expenses, approvals play a very, very important role, right? Right approvals at the right time. If there are exceptions, which stakeholders have to be brought in, so that not all stakeholders are making decision or saying yes or no to all the problems. We have to be very, very selective on who is approving when. If the overall reimbursement is less than 1 lakh, probably the HOD or probably the finance side needs not to be involved in that. But if it is more than 1 lakh, it has to be involved. If it is day to day, but again there is some compliance issues, the manager has to be involved. Otherwise, no. If it is all by rules and regulations, why there is a need to involve that manager at that point? So that's why approval not only shortens the time, but also creates better flow. Then the third is audit part. Once you have data and approvals are sorted, audit problems actually goes down. But if it still remains, the idea is how system can smartly audit the bills on the behalf of the finance team, right? So that finance team doesn't have to put in multiple people to go through multiple Excel files or invoices or tickets to understand how many rules have been broken, right? One very, very common example we face in travel or expenses is the single bill is being submitted by multiple employees. They share the lunch, nobody talked to each other that who is going to submit that bill, so everybody submitted the bill, right? Again, similar issue, travel, no matter how, I would say how quickly this could be communicated by the events team that there is going to be an event. I am going to book my tickets 2 hours or I would say 1 day before it, right? Even though there is a policy that you cannot book a ticket, at such short notice. So those kind of issues still come up that contributes to non-compliance, which can be sorted out through audit. And the last is process, which is again very, very common to all digitization processes. How your internal structures can be built into the company rather than company's internal structure has to be pushed to you. There are many times, there are companies that say, this is how it works. You have to change according to this, but this is not how it works, because the process cannot be changed overnight for the sake of automation. So the idea is how the process can be transparently, implemented into any kind of a product. It could be a SaaS product or any other product that is there. So this is where DAP comes into picture, and how Happay helps you do that from a perspective of travel and expenses. So first of all, as I talked about how the data is getting captured, can we give multiple ways to employee to capture their expenses, travel tickets, you name it, right? So there are 6+ sources of spend. I'll talk more on it. Then there are predefined rules. If rule 1 follows, then it should go to number 1 stakeholder. If 1 or 2 is violated, it goes to 3. If 3 rules are violated, it goes to 4. So automated workflows so that right stakeholders come at the right time. Smart audit, we talked about audit as a DAP framework. So smart audit actually helps flag the bills in real time. If there are any issues coming up with any kind of a bill, duplicacy we just talked about, rather than sharing expenses, everybody submitted the same bill, right? Or other kind of issues, for example, rather than 500, somebody wrote 5,000. They scanned the bill was 500, but somebody wrote 5,000. So there could be a typo. So those kind of audits, and these are the issues that actually creates this 30% data that came in non-compliance. These are the issues that can be sorted through smart audit. And the last, which I talked about, how your policies can be implemented into the system, right? So whatever policies you have related to your travel expenses, how this could be implemented into the system, that also is something that is built in. Data capture, again employees, we expect them to open their laptop and file the expenses, but most of the expenses happen outside in the field, right? So again, there is an issue of when the data is captured and how it is captured, right? So if it is real time, then there is absolutely no loss of data. How we can make it real time? By getting into WhatsApp or SMS, or by a click of a picture if they can create those expenses, or if they can book their own tickets through their own app, there is actually a real time transmission of data from point A to point B, and this is what we give. So there are 6 ways through which the data getting captured, either employee using their own cards to swipe it, or through email, a direct communication. If an Ola bill is coming on email, expense line item is created then and there. They don't have to do anything. WhatsApp, they use WhatsApp, simply click a picture and send it on a central number, expense line item again created. Right? So it is all about reaching where your employees already are. Right? And this leads to some 67% lesser errors that comes due to manual data entry, again which can lead to some misinformations into data captured. Now this is on the approvals part which I talked about, how the rules are getting reflected, how people are, how stakeholders are involved. And this is how ideally any system, in SaaS should ideally, cover. But if I talk about travel and expenses, if there is a long chain of command, how as per the exception there are stakeholders that are getting involved, and there as per their yes or no, how the information is being managed. And then AI automatically flagging any kind of a bill which has duplicate or restricted item. You don't allow alcohol, but still alcohol bill is there. Out of 20 items, there is 1 alcohol, right, which is not permitted. But still it is very, very difficult to find out once you are doing it. So smart audit can automatically detect these. And then these are the audits, as I just talked about, out of policy spends. Now out of policy spend, interestingly, most of the time is not actually a genuine, it's a genuine mistake, right? So I'm not aware about the policy. Many times it happens that, HR creates a big sheaf of sheets on policies, and very rarely we read it, and even if we read it, it's very difficult to remember at the right time when we are doing the mistake. So the idea is, whenever we are doing something, can in real time a system gives an alert to the employee that this is the policy and this is what you are trying to do. So if the action happened right at the time of execution, this actually solves a lot of issues, and this is what we are trying to do through audit. So it's not only about go read the policies, it is also about the execution of those policies, which digitization can help. So rather than they going through the entire sheet, which may or may not be applicable for me because the sheet is not dynamic in nature, but still I have to go through and I have to find out which is applicable to me, which is not. But if I'm a M4, M3 grade, my system, my user journey will be as per my grade. Now system knows that these are the things that I can do, these are the things I cannot do. I also know the same, right? And then in processes, as I talked about, so this is, some of the processes that are right there. Again, as I said, user-based journeys as we defined. Once you are selecting which user you are talking about, as a finance team, you have selected a user and the system automatically says that per diem allowance is this much. You don't have to remember. You don't have to put in your, senior stakeholders involved in these processes who are well aware about the policy. Anybody who is even new in the system can actually do these activities, right? At any given moment, employees are also aware that, okay, this hotel is not permitted, business class I cannot book. So there is no option of booking itself, right? So these are the processes, and that's how we cover our DAP framework, that is data, audit approvals, and processes. And that's how the system tries to implement whatever I just shared as a framework. The system tries to implement it. So yeah, so this is pretty much what I have talked very little on what we do as a company, but yeah, it's, as you would have guessed by now, it's travel and expenses. And the idea is more and more people we study, the more and more we realize that what kind of frameworks are ideal for any specific company and what could work, what could not work. And it's a constant learning, of course. Any question that is related to this would love to answer. Actually, Concur is a direct competitor, right? The one difference that is there is we are India first, then global. They are global first, then India. So a lot of, we talked about AI as well. In AI training, our system is a lot better trained on Indian invoices and the India way of working, right? Against Concur, which is still a very good system, but still it is, as I said, global first. So when it comes to OCR engine, when it comes to GST capability, when it comes to cards, that we have Happay cards as well. So there are some things which are missing there. There could be something which are missing with Happay and that is there in Concur, but I can talk about what is missing there and what is there with us. So cards, they don't provide prepaid cards, they have just credit card integration. So those kind of things that Happay does a little bit better, but yeah, we are a competition, we are a direct competition to SAP Concur. Any other? For missing receipts, right? So see, yes, missing receipts is a big issue, and that's why I talked about data capturing where it is happening. So I can miss the receipts, but if I've already captured it, the photo, and it has already created expense line item in the backend, so I don't. That is a discipline part, yeah. Correct, yeah. So that is there. The another thing, as I talked about, is where, for example, if the invoice is by any chance coming to my email, I don't need the copy. If it is coming to SMS, in fact, right? So because most of the companies now sending e-invoices. So if e-invoice is there, then I don't need to carry any kind of a hard copy as well. So, yeah.
So the system also reconciles with the, transactions captured as what happens with the statement that comes later?
You are talking about the credit card, right? So there are two ways to work on it when it comes to card statement versus Happay. So there are two ways. One, credit card integration. If you have done the credit card integration, if they are swiping it somewhere, expense line item is automatically created. Now once they come back to office or they are submitting that bill, the system auto merges. No need to put any statement. The system recognizes that, okay, the same GST number is reflected there. When he swipes, the same GST number is coming as an OCR when they click the picture, and it auto merges. So the settlement happens. Yes, you have spent 2,000 from the company account at Subway, but then you have submitted the bill, the system auto merges and settles the bill. The similar way, cards, I talked about prepaid cards. Similar way, the card also handles. If you are giving your employee Happay cards, they can simply swipe it anywhere they want, and they can later book of the transactions. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure presenting here.